Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope your day is going wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I'm super excited I get to share with you a couple projects. We're using a couple of the club kits over at Spellbinders. These are the February clubs. We are going to create a card using the Old School Notes stamp set, and we're also going to be using the coordinating die. This is actually one club combo, but you can actually purchase the stamp set separately. So I'll list both of them down below. But this is called Old School Notes. Love the typewriter in here and all the elements for scene building. We're going to use that on a project. And then we're going to combine them, both projects, with the embossing folder club kit of the month for February. This embossing folder is so pretty. It's called Sketched Floral. Let me show you what it looks like. Maybe you can see a better view. The florals in here are so pretty. They remind me of daisies. And as I mentioned before, I love the size of this embossing folder. It measures 5 3/4 inches by 8 3/4 inches. So it's great for so many sizes of cards. We're going to make A2 size cards today, and we are going to jump in with our first project. We're going to start by doing a little bit of embossing with our embossing folder. And I'm going to do all the embossing at once and then all the stamping at once, and then we'll put 2 cards together. We're going to open up our embossing folder, and I'm going to use some real pretty teal colored cardstock. This is Waterfall. I love this color, at least I think it's Waterfall. I have my little samples here. Yes. I'm going to put this in the embossing folder. Actually, I take that back. We better do die cutting first. I wanted a little window in this panel. This panel measures 4 inches by 5 1/4. And I'm going to use, this is the little paper that you can add. When you die cut out your typewriter, it cuts a slit. So you can add some paper, and that's what this is. And then each of the sentiments will fit in here, which is really nice. But I'm going to use this as a window. So let's tape this down, and I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine. I just want a small window on this panel. Okay, now that I have my window die cut, I'm going to actually save this. We're going to use that for our card. But I'm going to take my panel now, and then we'll run it through our die cutting machine. Okay, I ran it through, and I also, let me put this aside, I also ran a piece of fun foam through. And I'm going to keep both of these pieces. This is not, well, not fun foam. This is Spellbinders pop-up foam sheets. Love this stuff. Okay, so this is what my panel looks like. You can see the embossed detail. Isn't that gorgeous? What I'm going to do is take a little bit of ink. I'm going to use Salvage Patina. It's pretty close to the Waterfall. And then I'm going to be using my finger daubers. And it's going to basically be a tone on tone. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. You're not going to be able to see that much of a difference, but just a little bit is all I need. And I'm just adding a little bit of color, highlighting those flowers on that embossed background. And I think that's going to work out great. So you can see. Now I'm going to flip my panel around, and then I'm going to add my foam sheet. And I'm going to use my Glazing Glue. I've been loving using this as glue. Oh. And that wasn't very smart here. I don't want to waste. Okay. I'm going to flip my panel around. Glazing glue is like glossy accents, but it's actually great glue too. I'm going to flip my panel around, make sure you can't see that through the window. And then I'm going to clean up my mess. Now while my panel is drying, we're going to go ahead and work on our next embossed panel. And that we are going to use some white cardstock. This measures 3.5 inches wide by 5.5 inches tall. I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine, and we're going to emboss this panel with white cardstock. Here's my isn't that so gorgeous? Oh, I just love this embossing folder. Okay, I'm going to add a little color to the flowers for this one. I'm going to use two different colors. I'm going to use that same salvage patina, and I'm also going to use scattered straw. And my finger daubers are going to come back here. We're going to start by using scattered straw. Actually, let's use salvage patina. And I'm going to just really lightly go over these flowers, kind of going, skipping the center, because we want the center of these yellow. And I just want the embossed area colored. I think this looks so, so pretty. We'll go around. And if you get a little bit in your flower center, no worries, because the yellow will blend beautifully with the teal. So far I love the soft look of this. Next, we're going to go ahead and take our scattered straw, and this is going to go in the center. And we're going to just add a little color to the center. And so this embossed background is good to go. I'm going to set that aside over here. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to do some stamping, and then we're also going to be doing some heat embossing. So first, I have some colored cardstock here. This yellow is beeswax. I'm going to go ahead and take a acrylic block, and we're going to take our stamp set. And I'm going to stamp this flower here, this one here. And I'm going to first treat my yellow cardstock with my anti-static powder tool. And also we're going to take the peridot, and we're going to treat it with my anti-static powder tool. I'm going to go ahead and use my Versamark ink. And I'm going to stamp this 6 times. Then I'm going to take some white embossing powder, and we're going to go over this. I have a little bit, it doesn't look too pretty here. Okay, so there's these flowers. Next, we're going to go ahead and take well, no, not that one. Let's take this little flourish. This little we're going to take this little piece here, and then I'm going to ink this up with my Versamark ink, and we're going to stamp this 6 times, and we're going to 6. And I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to go over it with some white embossing powder. And then with this one, which is the dark green, this cardstock, all of the cardstock that I'm using, guys, is Spellbinders Color Essentials. This is Fern, and I just went through my scraps. These are my little scrap bins. I have them all labeled, and so it just helps me remember the colors. Next, I'm going to take the little leaf in here, and I'm going to ink this up with my Versamark ink, and we're going to stamp this 6 times. Now I'm going to go ahead and use my embossing, my heat embosser. We'll melt this. Okay, once my flower, my flourish, and my leaf, well, I didn't do any heat embossing with this. I'm just using my watermark ink for that. Now what we're going to do is take the coordinating dies, and I'm going to die cut them out. I'm not going to die cut all of them out right now. I'm going to just show you what I'm going to do with one, and then I'll do the same later on with all of the rest. Let's line this up. Let's zoom in a little more. Once I have all 3 die cut, of course I'm going to die cut all 6 out. But what I'm going to do next is take my tape runner, I'm going to flip over my flower, add some adhesive, and then we're going to add our little peridot flourish, and then we'll add our watermarked leaf and create just a little flower. Good to go. I'm going to take my foam tape, my foam squares, and go ahead and pop it up so this one's ready to go. And I'm going to do this 6 more times. Okay, all my flowers are good to go. You can see they're all the same with the leaves and the flourish. I'm going to set these aside. This one's going to go with this card. Now we're going to continue on and do just a little bit more stamping. Next we're going to take some white cardstock, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp this really pretty flower here. And I'm going to stamp this with a green ink because the leaves in here are solid. I'm using Memento bamboo leaves. We'll stamp this once. And then I'll take the other flower that's in the stamp set and we'll stamp this also. Oh, didn't stamp too good. This is where your MISTI comes in handy. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and color in these really fast, easy to do. This larger flower, I'm just going to use BG10. Nothing fancy, I just want to add a little color. And then I'm going to do a little bit of shading at the very bottom with BG15. We'll blend them both together. And then I'm going to take my YG61 and color in the leaves. And we'll add a little, color to this one. I'm going to add YG67 and then YG63. For this flower I went yellow, so we are going to add Y15 and then I'm going to do a little darker shading with Y35. Then our flowers are good to go. Okay, before we die cut this out, I want to do heat embossing one more time. And I have some beeswax cardstock. We're going to stamp the typewriter. So I'm going to treat my paper with my anti-static powder tool. I'm going to add this to an acrylic block. And then we'll ink this up with our watermark ink. I'm going to stamp this and go over this with our white embossing powder. We'll melt it. Okay, and then I'm going to take my darker yellow marker and we're going to just add some color here. So we have a little bit of color going with that two-tone look. Now I also have a darker yellow, and then I have more of the waterfall cardstock. This is saffron, the darker yellow. In our stamp set, there's a little heart. I'm going to stamp this on the waterfall. I'll stamp this on our saffron. And I think I'm going to do green too. I'm going to stamp this with our peridot. And then we're going to do a little heat embossing with these also. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and melt these and then die cut them out using the coordinating dies. Okay, I went ahead and die cut out all my images. So these images are going to go to this card here. Let's zoom back out. And then I went in and stamped the sentiment here. It says I'm typing this note just to say thank you. And I stamped this on the piece that was left over from this. And then I heat embossed it with white embossing powder. Okay, for our first card, I'm going to keep our foam tape for this one. But for our first card, we're going to go ahead and take our card base. And I'm going to stamp one more sentiment here. But this time I'm going to use some black ink. And for this card, let's see. I want a happy birthday sentiment. And I'm going to stamp with my VersaFine ink. And I'm stamping on some white cardstock. This is going to be on the inside of the window. And I like stamping it on a regular cardstock versus my card base because I know exactly where I want to put it. Let's go ahead and add some adhesive. I like to add some adhesive to my card base and then place my sentiment behind my window. Kind of line it up. And then I'm going to flip over my foam adhesive. And we're going to add this panel directly to our card base. The best thing about foam too is if you have any warping, the foam just lays it flat. Next, I'm going to take these little flowers that we created. I'll remove the release paper, and these are going to go in the center of all the areas that we added that darker embossing Distress Oxide ink. I just think that looks really pretty. Okay, for this card, we're going to add a few little bells and whistles. I have some blue gems. These are Aquamarine. These are the new gems that just came out. They are so pretty. And then these are the Aura. Both of these are just gorgeous. I'm going to dot the center of my flowers that we popped up with the Aura. And I'm going to go with the medium-sized gems. Okay, now on the embossed area, on these little points here, we're going to add some of our Aquamarine. And I'm going to go a little bit smaller. And we're going to add some sparkle there too. Just going with that tone on tone. Such pretty gems. And then that will finish my first card. A little bit of sparkle here. Now we're going to work on our second card. Second card, we are going to go ahead and take our embossed panel, flip it around, and we're going to add some foam tape. Or actually not foam tape. We're going to add our pop-up foam behind here to give it a little bit of dimension. Next, we're going to take our card base, and I went through my pattern paper and I found some pattern paper. This is a 2-inch strip. I'm going to go ahead and flip this around, add some adhesive, and then I'm going to have a little bit of yellow showing on the very bottom. Just a little yellow border. I'm going to add some more adhesive, and then we're going to add this about 3/4 inches up from the bottom of our card base. The excess that's overhanging we'll just trim off with our scissors. My embossed panel, and this is going to go down the center. Just wanted some extra little stripe detail here. Now for my typewriter, you can see when it die cuts out, it die cuts out a slit. Genius. That's why I love how well thought out Spellbinders dies are. You just tuck your cardstock inside your typewriter. Of course you're going to cover the back, but that's okay. And then I'm going to flip it around and add some foam tape. I actually have that leftover piece, our typewriter. I'm going to remove the release paper and add one more foam square. So the top portion of our typewriter is going to be one level higher. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of my glazing glue. I'll remove the release paper off of my foam squares, and then this one is going to go on the bottom. Okay, I think that looks good. Got a little dimension here on our typewriter. Now we're going to go ahead and take our two flowers. We're going to add a little glazing glue behind here. Actually, let's take some smaller foam squares on this bottom corner, kind of crisscrossing them across that typewriter. And then these little hearts we're going to flip over. We'll add some foam squares behind here. Let's put the yellow on the blue so it stands out a little bit more. Kind of a very soft card, but I just love the way this turned out. Now for this card, let's do some more bells and whistles. I have, let's see, some green gems. I think we'll use green. I think I'm going to like the contrast of the green against that yellow. So let's take some green Color Essential Gems, and I'm just going to add one gem to the center of our flowers on our embossed area, and that looks lovely. That finishes off my second project. Let's take a look at both of these. A couple different cards. I love the color theme though, but I love the little thank you card, and that embossing folder is just gorgeous. And then here it is again with colored cardstock. But that's my project today, guys, using the Spellbinders, the Clear Stamp and Die Club. It's called Old School Notes, and then also the Embossing Folder Club for February. It's called Sketched Floral. Thank you so much for joining me. I wish you a lovely day, and we will see you again. Sorry about the shaky camera. We'll see you again soon, guys. Bye-bye.